I didn't believe in ghost stories when I first enlisted. You don't get to. You train, you deploy, you survive. That's it. Everything else is noise. But what happened in that old concrete barracks in Afghanistan? I still can't explain it. And trust me, I've tried. We were deployed in Afghanistan, living in a concrete barracks with 12 bunks. 11 of us filled them. The 12th belonged to Lawson, a good soldier who was killed 3 months earlier. We kept his bunk untouched out of respect. His name tape still hung above it. Then the strange things started happening. One night, after a long patrol, I heard the unmistakable sound of someone sitting down on Lawson's bunk. Creak. The mattress dipped, the blanket pulled inward. I chalked it up to exhaustion, but the next night, everyone heard it. Creak. We watched the mattress lower like someone heavy had just climbed into it. A human-shaped shadow sat upright, then faded into nothing. The room went ice cold. Nobody slept. The activity got worse. Boots pacing under the bed, blankets falling to the floor, whispers in the dark. That's when Reyes, one of the older guys, decided to take matters into his own hands. "I'm talking to it," he said one night, standing at the foot of the bunk. "If Lawson is still here, maybe he's trying to say something." But before he could speak, someone grabbed his arm. It was Thompson, the youngest guy in our squad, barely 20, always reading his little pocket Bible before bed. His voice shook, but he stood firm. "Don't do that. Scripture says not to." He opened his Bible and read, Deuteronomy 18:10-12. "Let no one be found among you who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord." The room fell silent. Reyes backed away, and honestly, I was relieved. Not everything should be messed with. Command sent a chaplain the next day after hearing we were spooked. He prayed, walked the room, sprinkled holy water, the whole thing. We appreciated it, truly. But that night nothing changed. If anything, it got stronger. The springs shook violently at 2 a.m. A cold draft swept through the room even with all windows locked. Half the squad heard a voice whisper, "Still here." We were shaken. Even the tough guys were done pretending it was nothing. And that's when it happened. The next night, Thompson, the young soldier with the pocket Bible, stood up slowly from his bunk. He didn't yell. He didn't try to reach out. He just walked to the center of the barracks, placed his Bible on the ground and knelt. "Lord," he began softly, "we're scared. We don't know what's happening in this room, but you do. So I'm asking you to bring peace and remove anything that isn't from you." His voice was steady, stronger than any of us had ever heard. He prayed for maybe 3 minutes, and all at once, everything stopped. The air warmed. The pressure in the room lifted. The bunk, Lawson's bunk, went completely still. No creaks, no dips in the mattress, no shadows, just silence. A peaceful silence, like something had been dismissed. From that night on, nothing else happened. No footsteps, no whispers, no movements. It was over. I don't claim to know what was really happening in that corner, but I do know this. We were never meant to speak to the dead as the Lord commanded. Reyes was seconds away from trying, and maybe that would have opened something we couldn't close. But a young soldier, barely grown, with a Bible and a simple prayer, he brought peace none of us could. And that empty bunk, the one that was never really empty, finally stayed quiet. For good. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. People always ask what scared me most during deployment. They expect me to say firefights, mortar alarms, or the nights the ground shook under our boots. But the truth? The thing that still haunts me was a radio. A dented, dusty, half-broken field radio that should have been in a museum. Not in my hands at 2 a.m. in the middle of nowhere. I was the comms guy. Nights were my responsibility. While everyone slept, I monitored our backup systems. Backup meaning barely surviving, held together with tape, prayers, and a miracle. That radio didn't even have a working battery. We unplugged it most nights. But that night, that cursed night, I heard it. I remember freezing mid-sentence over my logbook. My first thought was simple, rational. No. Nope. Absolutely not. The radio is off. I turned around slowly, my chest tightening. I reached over, turned the knob just to make sure. Off. Completely off. But the static kept building, like a storm trapped inside the speaker. Then a voice slipped through the noise. Low? Anyone? Copy? My breath caught in my throat. I felt this pressure building behind my eyes. Fear mixed with something deeper. Sadness. Memory. Grief I thought I'd buried. Who is this? I whispered, even though I knew I shouldn't. No answer, just more static. Then, Corporal, respond. My name. My throat tightened instantly. My eyes burned. No, please, not that voice. It sounded like Rodriguez. He'd died 6 months earlier. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes before I could stop them. I swallowed hard, but my voice cracked anyway. Rod, is that you? The radio erupted. Gunfire, screaming, distorted. Gunfire, screaming. The exact sounds from Bravo Team's last transmission, except slower, distorted, like they were calling from underwater or from somewhere darker. I covered my mouth with my hands. My shoulders shook. I couldn't stop the tears spilling down my face. I kept thinking, this can't be real. It can't be them. They're gone. They're gone. But then the voice came again, soft, broken. Why didn't you answer? I dropped to my knees, because I had been on duty that night, because they'd called for backup, because the transmission came through too garbled to decode, because I have lived every day since wondering if I could have saved them. My chest caved inward, and the tears came harder. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I tried, I choked out. I swear I tried. The room grew colder. The radio hissed louder. The voice became clearer. We're still here, still waiting. Something inside me snapped. Panic drowned everything else. Tears blurred my vision as I ripped every cable from the wall. The radio didn't stop. I yanked out wires with shaking hands. Still didn't stop. Screaming. I screamed. Actually screamed. Grabbed the radio and stumbled outside. My tears hit the dirt as I threw it to the ground. The casing cracked open. And even then, even with its guts exposed, it whispered, "Corporal." A small whimper escaped my throat. I'd never felt so small. You left us. Then, silence. Just wind. Just night. Just me, kneeling in the dirt, crying like a child who lost everything all over again. However, Quest shipped the broken radio back to base for diagnostics. The techs sent a report 2 weeks later. Device shows no stored audio, no battery flow, no power history. Impossible for unit to broadcast. They asked if I wanted it back. I said heck no. But some nights, when the world gets too quiet and my thoughts get too loud, I still hear that faint, crackling breath in the dark. And a voice, softer now, almost patient. "Corporal, respond." They say the night watch messes with your head, but nothing prepared me for what happened at 0300 that morning. I was standing guard on the far end of base, the quiet section, where the wind cuts harder and the shadows stretch longer than they should. At that hour, everything feels heavier. Even the moon seemed to watch in silence. Around 0310, movement caught my eye across the field. A Marine stood there, perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back. His stance was textbook. Chin up, heels together, chest forward. The kind of posture you only keep if you've drilled it into your bones. At first I felt relief. It was comforting, honestly, just seeing another Marine out there. The nights got lonely. I tightened my grip on my rifle and called out softly, "You good over there, brother?" He didn't answer, didn't turn, didn't shift, just stood there, staring straight ahead. I figured he was deep in thought, or maybe doing some late inspection. So, out of respect, I raised my hand and gave him a clean salute. Slowly, very slowly, he returned it. No hesitation, no confusion, just a smooth, controlled motion, like he'd been waiting for me to acknowledge him. Something about it made my stomach tighten, but I held my posture until he lowered his hand. When I dropped my salute, I blinked, and he was gone. Not walked away, not faded into distance, gone, like the field swallowed him. I stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of it. I even walked the field with my flashlight, but there were no footprints, no shadows, no one I could have mistaken. The next morning, I reported the encounter to command, mostly because I thought maybe someone had gone wandering off shift. The duty officer raised an eyebrow, thoughtful. "Who exactly did you see?" I described him. Height, build, the clean uniform, the posture, that unmistakable Marine discipline. The officer's face darkened. He pulled out a file, slid a photo across the desk. Was it him? My throat went dry. It was him, the same Marine I saluted in the moonlight, but the officer shook his head. "He died stateside," he said quietly. "3 months ago, buried with full honors. He's not here." I didn't argue. I didn't know what to say.